All right, y'all. So I'm going to make this quick as I can because the moral to the story is leave your prejudice, biases, your religious biases at the door because the Most High is going to use who He is going to use so that you can be a light to them, right? So I was living, in a certain neighborhood. We had our business and we were doing good. And I said, let me start back up taking clients. So I was a nurse at the time and I was working for myself. So I put an ad in Craigslist, letting people know that I'm a nurse and I can help you take care of your loved ones, da 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 da. So her name is Miss Sarah, but that's not her real name. That's just the name that she used when she came here. And Miss Sarah calls me, and I go over there to see if I'm going to be a good fit for this family. So she's married. Her husband at that time went to the war. I forgot which war it was, but he was not in combat. He wasn't in the military. He was a contractor that got hurt. So unfortunately, his leg got blown off, right? And so they were coping with him being disabled. And she had three little children. I think she had three under four, right? And by the time I got over there, that house was a mess. Miss Sarah was a mess mentally, and I could tell that she really needed help with that. She didn't need help with her husband because he could walk, he was still working, so she needed help with her children and the house. And I, first of all, I was like, I'm not nobody's nanny. I am a nurse who help people with disabilities or the elders or the sick. I'm not nobody's nurse. And, that was one of the reasons why I was going to say no. But the main reason was I had judged them based off of just who they were. They were Indian from Pakistan. I think they had been maybe in the States a year or two, but I knew they were new. And I just assumed that they were Muslim. I never asked. I just assumed that. And I'm like, looking back, like, how you just gonna assume what somebody is based on their nationality or based on what you think they are? Because I thought they were Arab, but they were Indian from Pakistan. So I told the Most High, no, I'm not staying in this house where they serve another God. And, I was keeping Torah at that time and newly coming into Torah. And I was like, no, I'm not, and deep down inside, I knew that was wrong because as a nurse, you take care of people no matter what their religion is. Their religion don't have nothing to do with you taking care of them. But the Most High really wanted to rip this thinking out of my heart. And that's why I am the way that I am. Even though I trace my, lineage, this fly, he better not come back over here. I traced my lineage. The Most High dealt with me in dreams and visions about who I am as an Israelite from the 12 tribes. That's my personal testimony, right? But he wanted to rip this thinking out so that I can be balanced and help people to come into Torah. So, getting back to Miss Sarah. So, I just had my biases based on how she looked, didn't even know what culture or ethnicity she was. I just put her in the category. That's what some of us do in this walk, and this is shame that we do that. So I tell the Most High no. And I distinctively remember him saying, you're going to go back to that house. Now, I'm like, what is so special about this family? Right? Like, they don't even know you. Like they can really get somebody else. Because for me, I think when I'm coming into your house, it's intimate for me. That's just how I am. I can feel, I can pick up on stuff. But when I went into the house, what I picked up was that she needed help. I didn't pick up on none of her pagan gods or whatever I thought her religious background was. When I came into the house, I picked up that she needed help, that she needed help with her children and managing her house before she had a nervous breakdown. And the Most High told me to go back. And I remember fussing and saying, man, I do not want to go back. This woman need a maid. She need a house manager. She do not need a nurse. But I was obedient, and I'm glad that I was, because I found out that they were not even practicing Muslims. But that didn't even matter, right? That didn't even matter. But I guess to me, once I found out that they weren't really practicing Muslims, they had their prayer mat, because as I helped her clean up and organize her space, they had their prayer mat, and they had some items, you know, that I knew that they, kind of like us Hebrews over here on this side, kind of like us Christians and Jews who only go to service during certain holidays or holy days, i.e., you only show up to Passover and to the feast days, but the rest of the time you're not doing nothing, you're not living nothing. Like those that show up to Easter service, but you don't go to church no other time. Yeah. So, they were like that. But they still had morals and ethics, right? And so I just got to know a lot about her family, and their culture, how they operate, and things of that nature. So we are establishing a really good friendship without me even realizing it. Like we were really getting close. I think I took care of Miss Sarah's family for about a year, I believe, because they left and went to Pakistan. But when her cousin came to visit, so her cousin and her children came to visit, and if you know anything about Indian culture, the caste system is real. Okay, so Miss Sarah was on the lighter side, right? And her cousin was on the lighter side, right? Um, but I found out Miss Sarah's husband said he like his women dark. I cracked up. But she was on the lighter side. And in their caste system, I knew that Miss Sarah and them came from money, right? She was coming over here with her husband, but I knew they came from money. I could just tell by the way they was moving and doing things. Even though they stayed in an older house in an older neighborhood, I knew they came from money. And I know different cultures think differently from Americans who will get a brand new house and can't even afford it. You house poor, you car poor, right? I know we do that. So her cousin, I guess they were having an argument because that high pitched voice. Now, Miss Sarah's in her language, in their language, they have high pitches anyway, if you really listen to them when they talk. But on this particular day, Miss Sarah's voice, I was like, no, something ain't right. They are arguing, right? And I remember when her cousin left out, I guess she went somewhere. Miss Sarah came to me to tell me all about the argument. And basically, her cousin was chastising her because she said, that is the help. Why are you being friends with the help? Right? Because me and Miss Sarah, we were really friends. I worked for her, I helped her with her children, but we were friends. And her cousin was like, you don't do that with the help. And Miss Sarah went off. She said, she was like, I told her that Tina is my friend and you do not talk about my friend. I mean, she just went in, and I was like, whoa, like Miss Sarah got her cousin in check. Okay. And her cousin bowed down to Miss Sarah, and kind of, I guess, had respect for me. So I believe at that time I wanted them to come to the 4th of July fireworks, right? Because I don't think they had ever been before. Yes, I was still celebrating 4th of July. Calm down. So Miss Sarah and her cousin and me and my family, we meet up to look at the fireworks in the neighborhood. Okay. And my children were mad because they were preteens. I think 3 of them were preteens, or 13, 14, 15, coming into the faith. And the other ones maybe like 7, 8, 10, something like that. So they understood that they wanted to go see the fireworks with their friends and their family, right? So they were getting up in age where they did not want to be with mom and dad, right? But I forced them to come to meet Miss Sarah and her family because Miss Sarah really wanted to meet my family. And plus, I don't let my kids go with everybody. That's just a no-no with me back then. Like, my kids could play, but you just going over everybody's house, that was a no-no. And Miss Sarah was cracking up because when my kids came, they was looking mad. But Miss Sarah, she thought, my kids were so beautiful, and they were going, her cousin too. They were going on and on and on about my kids, and they were asking why they was looking like that, and I was explaining to them that I don't let them go with their friends to places, all the time, and I don't let them go to their friends' houses all the time. I'm kind of strict with them in that way. And when Miss Sarah's cousin heard that, she went on and on and on and on about that, how she agreed. And we just had a great conversation about raising kids, morals and ethics. Okay. And by the time Miss Sarah's cousin left to go back to Pakistan, she turned to me and she said, "You know what? You have made me think about Americans in a different way. I thought that all Americans was the same from what we see on TV." She said, "But talking to you, I realized that we got more in common than we think." And I was like, whoa. And that's what I'm talking about, where the Most High wants us to put down our religious biases because you realize you have more in common. Now, I'm not a we are the world type of person where we all sitting in the same room and you worship your God and I worship my God. That's not what we're talking about, but that is what you're programmed to think when you're coming from different religious backgrounds. We're taught to not even to see the humanity in a person so that we can be a light to the person, especially if you feel that your faith and your way of life is righteous. Then they need to see your walk, and you don't need to just talk about how pagan and how unruly their quote unquote religion is when people in your religion is just as unruly and pagan acting as you claim them to be, right? And I remember a time where um, they needed some help, and I believe they hired this white couple. I guess it was to do their lawn or something, and it was a white couple that came in. And this white couple, they looked like they were on the rougher side of the tracks. Okay. And they had the nerve to come in and sideways talk about Miss Sarah and her husband. And I can't exactly remember what they said. All I remember is Tina caught an attitude and Tina put them in check. And I told them what they will not do is come in their house and try to talk about them to me, because that's what you're not going to do. And I sent them on about their way. And I told Miss Sarah, and we talked about that. Like, we had really established a great relationship, in so much that Miss Sarah always talked to me about how she did not want her daughters to grow up, in a misogynistic type of society. And that's part of the reason why she wanted to come to America. And I think they wanted to, take the job with her husband. And once he completed his contract, they were going to go back to Pakistan so she could go to nursing school because she wanted to break barriers. And I believe they were going to come back to the United States after she finished nursing school because it was cheaper. With your American dollars, it would be cheaper to go. So that was really smart. And she would always talk to me about, how she wanted to be free from stereotypes and things of that nature. So we always had these great conversations. We even had the conversation about the Bible as we sat down around the table and they fixed me dinner and we broke bread together. And we talked about the Bible and we realized we had a lot of things in common. And of course, we know that we have differences when it got to Ishmael, right? When it got to Ishmael, that's when we see the differences. But I learned that they believe in the Most High. They call him Allah, but they believe in Abraham's Elohim, right? And so I just learned a lot. And by the time they left, they asked us to store their things in our garage. So her husband is taking me home one night, and he realizes that we, where we stay, and he put two and two together, and he looked at the car I drove, and he looked at the house I stayed in, and he was like, "Wait a minute!" And he flat out told me, "You don't need my money, huh? You don't need this job that you're doing." I said, "No, I don't need it. I like taking care of people. Like that is my calling, to be a caretaker. I like pouring into people and ministering to people." He was outdone. He was like, "Wow." And when they left for Pakistan to so she could do nursing, he gave me and my husband such a high blessing. And he told us that we were great people and that we were people of integrity and had great character. And he told us that we always kept our word. We are people who meant what we say and say what we mean. And I remember him getting on that plane and he said, "I'm leaving my wife and children in your care, to get them to the airport," because he had to go first for some reason. And Miss Sarah and them had to stay at the house. So he placed his wife and children in my husband's hands to get her to the airport. My husband took that job seriously and made sure that those kids and Miss Sarah got on that airplane, honey. And we took their things and stored it in our garage. And he gave us that blessing. Now, the Most High had to break down my religious um, prejudice. Like, stop judging people based on what you think they believe, because it was so many things that happened in that relationship. How they, I learned about their culture and their dress and how they wanted me to put on their garment and take pictures, because I think on the side he did photography and they were showing me his photography work, back at home, and they were like, "You would be so beautiful," and they gave me a lot of their cultural garments because they thought I would just be beautiful in it. And I just learned a lot about them, and they learned a lot about me and the faith that I had. And we got along on things that we had in common, right? So I was able to be a light to Miss Sarah, in so much that when she got to Pakistan, she would write me emails as long as she could. And she would tell me how much she missed me and what was going on. That's the power of you being a light. That's the power of you being a light, sowing seeds and breaking down these religious biases that you have when you gang banging on other people who don't believe or think like you. And that's one reason why I go hard against that. And that's why my content is changing. And this is why I want to be a safe bridge for people to cross over when they want to know more about the Most High. Not that they don't know him, because a lot of us believe that if a person is in Christianity or in Islam, that they don't know the Most High at all. And we think, we introducing them to the Most High for the very first time. Let me tell you something. I knew the Most High when I stepped in that Christian church. I knew the Most High when I called on Jesus and he answered me. I knew that. But I'm closer to him because I'm getting to know him more. And I'm getting to understand why he says what he says. I'm getting to understand what it really means to walk with him and to lay down religious dogma and to understand the Bible from the way that he wants me to understand it, and to get closer and closer to him. That's what it's all about. And to be a light and reflect that closeness that you have with him, to reflect it to others so others can see, "Oh, She really do have a relationship with the creator. She not playing. So that's why story time. Lay down your religious dogma and your biases and let your light shine. And so that when you stand before him, he can say, well done, right? My good and faithful servant.